Can I now request distinguished delegate from European Disability Forum?
Presidente. Hablaré en nombre.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on behalf of the European Disability Forum as their Secretary General. Today, as we're reflecting on the 20th anniversary of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, more than ever, we need to be clear. The CRPD has really transformed the way the world understands disability. What's more, in this convention it's been affirmed that persons with disabilities are rights holders and not an object of charity or care. An extremely important tool has been set up for dignity, for autonomy and participation. We now truly have a roadmap in order to change public policy and legislation and bring it in line with our fundamental rights in Europe and anywhere else in the world. However, 20 years later, the promise has still not been fulfilled, and honestly, there's still a lot to do. Progress does exist, that's true. However, implementation is being carried out so slowly, and it's so unequal. In the European Union, for example, it must be said that a quarter of the population, that's around 101 European citizens, have disabilities. Nevertheless, the barriers that we continue to face every day remain there in education, in jobs, in healthcare, in access to housing, transport, justice, sexual and reproductive rights, and political participation. And this was laid bare during the last review of the EU by the CRPD. We're seeing that very little progress has really been made in critical areas. For example, protection against discrimination remains incomplete. Accessibility remains a pending issue in the everyday lives of people when it comes to accessing services. EU funds, for example, continue to be used for institutionalization, for segregation, the segregation of people, rather than using it to ensure that we can live in society independently. We're particularly concerned about political participation. Look, 400,000 people from 12 countries of the European Union cannot vote in European elections, among other things because the legislation of those countries is not in line with the CRPD. We need to be very clear also on women and girls with disabilities. 29.2% of the female population of the European Union, that's 66 million people, are women and girls with disabilities. Without policy in place for us, without legislation to protect us against violence, sexual abuse, sexual harassment, we haven't even managed to achieve forced sterilisation due to disabilities to be defined as a crime in the European Union. We haven't even achieved that. Dear colleagues, we really need to talk seriously about this time. We don't need to be celebrating. What we need to be doing is acting. We really need to ensure that there is enough budget in place for accessibility, for independent life, inclusion, participation to become a reality for people with disabilities. We need organisations of persons with disabilities to be integrated, involved in the defining of any public policy that we put on the table. We should not be kept outside. Look, at the last General Assembly of the European Forum on Disabilities, an important resolution was adopted. A resolution that condemned...
Because your time is up.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. I do apologise.
gracias, lo entiendo.
Thank you. I understand. Chairman, we need to make the rights of persons with disabilities a reality in the European Union and at the United Nations. We really need to guarantee these. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for highlighting the situation in EU and also for making right calls to make things happen and to change the ground realities for the better.